Hey guys, this is Drew. I wanted to talk to you today about tax homes and tax-free stipends. I recently was on the travel tax website and found a bunch of good information explaining what a tax home and tax-free what a tax home is and how to receive tax-free stipends 100% legally. It's not super complicated. I'm going to try and keep it very simple today. To start with, of course, you have to have a tax home to receive tax-free stipends. You might ask, well, what is a tax home? A lot of people think, oh, well, if I, pay rent in my hometown and I pay rent in my contract location, then I'm duplicating expenses and I have a tax home and I can receive tax-free stipends. That's not always true. I drew a little picture here just to kind of get things started of, kind of what a tax home is. You have your primary home, and from my understanding prior to reading this information by Travel Tax, I assumed the distance from my primary home to the outside of my primary home was 50 miles, and everything within that was considered my tax home. However, I found out that's not necessarily always true. So, I'm going to kind of explain how that might not always be true. To start with, the IRS, their laws are purposefully vague. They are not clear-cut. There is no 50-mile rule. The three requirements by the IRS to maintain a tax home are listed here. Number one is have regular business within your tax home. That's within that circle around your primary home. You might ask, what the heck is primary business or regular business? That was my same question. Every situation is different. However, Travel Tax suggested 1/4 of your annual taxed income. Which as a travel nurse, most of your income, or at least half of your income, comes to you as tax-free, so it's not counted. So if you consider, as a travel nurse, you're, over the year you make, say $80,000, only $40,000 was tax-free, or only $40,000 was taxed. Then if you made, say, $10,000 of that within your tax home, then you are meeting this requirement because $10,000 is 1/4 of your annual taxed income. I'm going to get into some situations how you can satisfy this requirement in a minute. Number two is you are responsible for the upkeep, such as this is your mortgage or rent, utilities, HOA fees, and anything else included with that. I'm assuming insurance and whatnot. And then number three is you do not abandon. You might think, well, what does that mean? Or what is, how do I not abandon it? And once again, that's very unclear. However, Travel Tax suggested spend 30 days at tax home. And Travel Tax went on to say that from their experience dealing with the IRS and with travel nurses, that they felt confident that 1/4 of the annual taxed income and spending 30 days at home would satisfy these vague requirements, since there's not a clear line of what is abandonment and what is regular business. So with all that said, the three requirements, you might think, well, I definitely don't meet all three of those requirements. I might meet two. Don't stress. Travel Tax went on to say if you only meet one of the three of these requirements, then you probably do not have a tax home. If you meet two of the three requirements, then you likely have a tax home. And if you meet all 3 requirements, then you do have a tax home. So with that being said, you should at least have 2 of these requirements met. So this, a lot of people, in the past thought, well, I have to pay rent at home and I have to pay rent at my contract location. Not necessarily so. Obviously, number 2 here is the one where it talks about paying rent. So what if you, say, had a PRN job, which is considered regular business, where say you picked up a shift in between contracts, or you came home once a month and worked some shifts, and it paid well enough that you made, say $10,000 throughout the year, then you met requirement number 1. Also, when you're coming back home for your PRN job, you're probably staying at your tax home. If you were to say, come back home, work those PRN shifts and then come home for holidays, or maybe between contracts, you would probably likely end up staying for 30 days. So you have met 2 of the 3 requirements. Potentially, you might not would have to pay rent within your tax home to maintain a tax home. Hopefully this hasn't been too confusing. Feel free to comment. Let me know what your questions are as far as maintaining a tax home. Next, I'm going to address the tax-free stipends. Because to receive tax-free stipends, you have to maintain a tax home, but you also have to duplicate expenses. Duplicating expenses basically mean that duplicating, you are having your tax home, but you also have a second residence, I think is how they refer to it, and that would be at your contract. To get 100% of the tax-free stipends, you have to duplicate every single day. So let's say you have a contract, it's outside of your tax home, you've been maintaining your tax home, but it's close enough that you can commute home, you clump your days together and you commute home on your days off. So you stay in a hotel 3 nights a week. So for those 3 nights, you are duplicating expenses, but the other 4 nights you are not duplicating expenses. So therefore, you can only receive 3 nights worth of tax-free stipends for that week's pay. So you are not duplicating expenses 7 days a week. So scenario number 2 is, you have a contract outside of your tax home. It's an Airbnb. You're paying rent on it every single night. You're duplicating expenses 7 days a week for the entire contract. With that being said, you can receive 100% of your tax-free stipends. So, once again, this is from my understanding of what I've read on travel tax, this is how you receive how you maintain a tax home and receive tax-free stipends legally. Just know there's lots of people out there who are not doing it 100% legally. And hey, if they're comfortable with that, that's fine. However, if they get audited, they will have to prove these things. If they do not, or if they're not able to prove to the IRS and satisfy these 3 requirements to their approval, then they could face penalties, fees, and have to pay back taxes on that tax-free money that they did not have to pay originally. Hope this helps. Like I said, if you have any questions, if this wasn't clear, please comment and let me know.